Imagine waking up one day to find that your home, your city, and your entire neighborhood are slowly being swallowed by the ocean. Sounds like a scene from a disaster movie, right? Well, for millions of Americans, this could soon become reality. By 2040, entire communities along the U.S. coastline could be underwater. From the glitzy streets of Miami to the historic charm of New Orleans, rising sea levels are threatening to wipe out homes, businesses, and entire towns. Scientists warn that the next 2 decades will be critical, with coastal real estate facing billions of dollars in losses. But which states are at the greatest risk, and what does this mean for homeowners and investors? In this video, we're counting down the top 10 U.S. states that could lose homes to rising sea levels. And trust me, some of these might shock you. If you're thinking about buying property near the coast, you need to watch this. Is your state on the list? Stay with us until the end to find out. Let's dive in. Number 10. Virginia. Virginia's eastern shore is adorned with a chain of barrier islands, pristine and largely untouched by development. These islands serve as natural buffers, protecting the mainland from the Atlantic's fury. However, the relentless rise in sea levels driven by global warming poses an existential threat to these delicate landforms. Since the mid-19th century, Virginia's barrier islands have been in a state of flux. Shoreline analyses from 1850 to 2010 reveal a consistent pattern of retreat, with erosion rates accelerating over time. Looking ahead to 2040 and beyond, the prognosis is alarming. Under current sea level rise scenarios, many of these islands may diminish significantly or disappear entirely. This loss would not only erase unique ecosystems but also expose inland areas to increased storm surges and flooding. While the barrier islands themselves are sparsely populated, their degradation has cascading effects. Coastal towns like Norfolk and Hampton are already grappling with recurrent flooding. The loss of natural barriers exacerbates these challenges, threatening homes, infrastructure, and local economies. Virginia is proactively addressing these threats. Initiatives include restoring wetlands, implementing living shorelines, and revising zoning laws to discourage development in high-risk areas. However, the magnitude of the challenge requires continuous innovation and substantial investment. Consider the plight of Tangi Island, a small community in the Chesapeake Bay. Residents have witnessed their island shrink year after year, with homes perilously close to the encroaching waters. Their story is a poignant reminder of the human faces behind climate statistics. Number 9. Mississippi. Mississippi's Gulf Coast, known for its rich cultural heritage and vibrant communities, stands on the front line of climate change. The interplay of rising sea levels and land subsidence creates a perilous situation for this region. The Gulf Coast has always been dynamic, shaped by the ebb and flow of the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. However, human interventions, such as river channeling and wetland drainage, have disrupted natural sediment deposits, weakening coastal resilience. Communities like Biloxi and Gulfport experience frequent flooding, even during minor storms. The loss of protective wetlands has made these areas more susceptible to storm surges, leading to property damage and economic losses. By 2040, projections indicate that significant portions of Mississippi's coast could be underwater. This scenario threatens thousands of homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure, potentially displacing entire communities. The Gulf Coast's economy, heavily reliant on tourism, fisheries, and maritime industries, faces unprecedented challenges. As coastal areas become uninhabitable, the ripple effects could impact the state's financial stability. In response, local governments and organizations are investing in resilience projects. Efforts include restoring wetlands, constructing levees, and developing evacuation plans. However, the scale of the threat necessitates a coordinated and well-funded response. Meet the residents of the Turkey Creek community, a historic African-American settlement near Gulfport. They've battled not only natural disasters, but also environmental injustices, as development encroaches on their flood-prone lands. Their resilience embodies the spirit of coastal Mississippi. Number 8. New York. New York, a state synonymous with resilience and innovation, confronts the escalating challenges of climate change head-on. From the bustling streets of New York City to the serene shores of Long Island, rising sea levels pose multifaceted threats to its diverse communities. New York City, with its intricate network of subways, skyscrapers, and neighborhoods, is particularly susceptible to coastal flooding. The memory of Superstorm Sandy in 2012 serves as a stark reminder of the city's vulnerability. Long Island's expansive coastlines are at risk, with communities facing increased flooding and erosion. The combination of sea level rise and powerful storms threatens both property and the local economy. By 2040, sea levels along New York's coast are expected to rise significantly, leading to more frequent and severe flooding events. This escalation endangers homes, infrastructure, and vital services. The potential loss of property and infrastructure could result in economic losses amounting to billions of dollars. The real estate market, insurance industry, and municipal budgets are all poised to feel the strain. New York has launched ambitious initiatives to bolster its defenses against rising waters. Projects like the East Side Coastal Resiliency Plan aim to fortify vulnerable areas, while policies are being enacted to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote sustainable development. Consider the residents of Broad Channel, a tight-knit community in Queens nestled between Jamaica Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. They've weathered numerous storms and are now at the forefront of implementing resilient building practices to safeguard their future. Number 7. New Jersey. New Jersey's iconic shorelines, from the bustling boardwalks of Atlantic City to the tranquil beaches of Cape May, are under siege from the relentless advance of rising sea levels. The state's 130-mile coastline faces increasing threats, not only from natural erosion, but also from intensifying storms, tidal surges, and rising waters. New Jersey has been experiencing significant erosion, with some areas losing more than a foot of shoreline per year. This loss not only affects natural habitats, but also threatens residential and commercial properties. Areas like Long Beach Island and Sea Isle City have already seen entire streets vanish due to erosion, and the problem is only getting worse. Efforts to rebuild dunes and renourish beaches provide temporary relief, but without long-term solutions, coastal communities may face irreversible damage. Communities along the Jersey Shore have reported an increase in tidal flooding, even on sunny days, a phenomenon known as nuisance flooding. Streets in towns like Wildwood and Ocean City flood even in mild storms, disrupting traffic, damaging businesses, and straining local resources. During hurricanes and nor'easters, the situation becomes dire, with floodwaters inundating homes and businesses. Superstorm Sandy in 2012 was a stark reminder of the state's vulnerability, causing $30 billion in damages and displacing thousands of residents. Projections suggest that by 2040, sea levels along New Jersey's coast could rise by over a foot, exacerbating existing issues and potentially rendering some areas uninhabitable. Barrier islands, such as those along the Atlantic coast, face the greatest risk. Scientists predict that by mid-century, up to 50,000 homes could be at risk of permanent flooding, forcing tough decisions about retreat or investment in massive infrastructure projects. New Jersey's tourism industry, which generates billions in revenue annually, faces challenges as beaches erode, homes flood, and businesses struggle to stay afloat. Beach replenishment projects require continuous funding, but taxpayers and policymakers are debating how long these efforts can remain sustainable. The rising cost of maintaining and upgrading flood-prone infrastructure is putting pressure on both local governments and homeowners, who are seeing insurance rates skyrocket as flood risks grow. New Jersey has undertaken several climate resilience projects, including the Rebuild by Design initiative, which aims to protect cities like Hoboken from future flooding. New seawalls, stormwater management systems, and nature-based solutions like wetland restoration are being explored. However, some experts argue that managed retreat, the gradual relocation of people and businesses away from high-risk areas, may be the only sustainable long-term strategy. New Jersey's battle against rising seas is far from over. But one thing is clear. The state must act quickly if it hopes to preserve its iconic coastline for future generations. Number 6. California. California, renowned for its stunning coastlines and vibrant coastal cities, stands at a critical juncture as rising sea levels threaten its shores. The interplay of climate change, urban development, and natural geological processes presents a complex challenge for the state. California's coastal regions are experiencing accelerated erosion, endangering infrastructure, homes, and iconic landmarks. The Pacific Coast Highway, a vital transportation artery, faces increasing threats from collapsing cliffs and encroaching tides. Communities perched atop bluffs, such as those in Pacifica, have witnessed homes teetering on the edge, leading to dramatic relocations and property losses. The state's diverse marine ecosystems, including kelp forests and tidal wetlands, are vulnerable to rising sea levels. These habitats serve as crucial nurseries for marine life and act as natural buffers against storm surges. Their loss could have cascading effects on biodiversity and fisheries, impacting both the environment and local economies. California's economy, heavily reliant on tourism and coastal industries, faces significant risks. Beaches like Malibu and Santa Monica attract millions annually. Their erosion could deter visitors, leading to substantial revenue declines. Additionally, the threat to Silicon Valley's infrastructure from potential flooding poses challenges to the tech industry's global operations. In response, California has initiated various measures to combat sea level rise. Projects include restoring wetlands to serve as natural flood defenses, implementing managed retreat strategies in vulnerable areas, and revising building codes to enhance resilience. The state also invests in climate research and collaborates with local communities to develop tailored adaptation plans. Consider the residents of Del Mar, a coastal community north of San Diego. Facing frequent flooding and beach erosion, the town engaged in heated debates over constructing seawalls versus relocating structures inland. This dilemma underscores the broader challenges many Californian communities confront, balancing immediate protective measures with sustainable long-term solutions. Number 5. South Carolina. South Carolina's low country, characterized by its expansive marshlands and historic cities like Charleston, is increasingly susceptible to the encroaching tides of the Atlantic Ocean. Charleston, with its cobblestone streets and antebellum architecture, has witnessed a marked increase in nuisance flooding. Streets that once flooded during rare storms now see water regularly during high tides, disrupting daily life and threatening the preservation of historic sites. The state's barrier islands, including Hilton Head and Kiowa, serve as both tourist destinations and protective buffers against storms. Accelerated erosion and rising sea levels jeopardize these islands, leading to habitat loss and increased vulnerability of inland areas to storm surges. Tourism, a cornerstone of South Carolina's economy, faces challenges as beaches erode and historic sites become threatened. Property values in flood-prone areas are declining, and insurance premiums are rising, placing financial strains on homeowners and businesses alike. In response, South Carolina has embarked on several resilience initiatives. Charleston has developed a comprehensive sea level rise strategy focusing on infrastructure improvements, restoration of natural barriers, and community engagement. Efforts to bolster marshlands and oyster reefs aim to enhance natural defenses against flooding. The Gullah Geechee communities, descendants of African slaves residing on the Sea Islands, face unique challenges. Their cultural heritage and traditional lands are at risk from rising waters, prompting efforts to document and preserve their way of life amidst environmental changes. Number 4. North Carolina. North Carolina's Outer Banks, a series of narrow barrier islands, are emblematic of the state's rich maritime history and natural beauty. However, these fragile lands are on the front lines of sea level rise. The Outer Banks have always been dynamic, with shifting sands and migrating inlets. However, rising sea levels and increased storm intensity have accelerated these changes, leading to frequent breaches and overwash events that threaten infrastructure and habitats. Towns like Nags Head and Rodantha face regular flooding, with homes collapsing into the ocean as erosion undermines their foundations. The loss of Highway 12, a vital lifeline for residents and tourists during storms, highlights the vulnerability of the region's infrastructure. Tourism, vital to North Carolina's coastal economy, is at risk as beaches erode and recreational areas become inaccessible. The fishing industry also faces challenges as estuarine habitats are altered, impacting species vital to both commercial and recreational fisheries. North Carolina has initiated beach nourishment projects and explored relocating structures away from vulnerable areas. The state is also investing in research to better understand coastal processes and inform policy decisions. Community engagement remains crucial as residents grapple with the realities of a changing coastline. In 2022, a beachfront home in Rodanthe dramatically collapsed into the ocean, highlighting the immediate threats posed by erosion and rising seas. This event sparked discussions about sustainable development and the future of coastal communities in North Carolina. Number 3. Texas. Texas, with its vast Gulf coastline, faces multifaceted challenges as rising sea levels threaten both its natural landscapes and industrial hubs. Houston, the state's largest city, is susceptible to storm surges and flooding, exacerbated by land subsidence and extensive urban development. The aftermath of Hurricane Harvey in 2017 underscored the region's vulnerability, with unprecedented rainfall leading to catastrophic flooding. In Galveston, an already fragile coastline is further threatened by stronger hurricanes and coastal erosion, leading to land loss that endangers entire neighborhoods. The Gulf Coast houses a significant portion of the nation's petrochemical industry, home to oil refineries, shipping ports, and manufacturing facilities. Rising sea levels and increased storm activity pose risks to these facilities, with potential implications for energy production and distribution. Flooding of refineries could lead to oil spills, air pollution, and economic disruptions, making it a national concern beyond Texas's borders. Additionally, the Port of Houston, one of the busiest ports in the United States, faces severe threats from increased storm surges and potential long-term inundation. The real estate market in coastal Texas is already seeing shifts, with homeowners in flood-prone areas struggling with skyrocketing insurance costs. Home values in high-risk areas have declined, while some banks are becoming hesitant to offer mortgages for homes vulnerable to future flooding. Environmentalists warn that wetland loss and rising salinity levels in coastal waters will further degrade natural habitats, disrupting marine life and fisheries crucial to local economies. Texas has begun taking steps to combat these risks. In 2021, the state proposed the Galveston Coastal Spine Project, a massive seawall system designed to protect Houston and Galveston from catastrophic hurricanes and storm surges. Other initiatives include wetland restoration and elevated infrastructure projects. However, with projections showing that sea levels in Texas could rise up to 2 feet by 2040, experts argue that more aggressive action is needed. In the small fishing town of Freeport, lifelong residents are witnessing the land they grew up on disappear. Families who have lived there for generations are now being forced to relocate, as homes that once sat safely inland are now prone to frequent flooding. For many, abandoning their coastal heritage is an emotional and financial burden, highlighting the human cost of Texas' changing landscape. The question remains, how much longer can Texas Gulf Coast communities hold back the rising tides? Number 2. Louisiana. Louisiana, often referred to as the Pelican State, is emblematic of the profound challenges posed by rising sea levels. Its vast wetlands, bayous, and the iconic city of New Orleans are on the front lines of climate change, facing threats that could reshape the state's geography and culture by 2040. Louisiana's coastal regions are experiencing some of the highest rates of relative sea level rise in the continental United States, with rates around 0.92 centimeters per year. This acceleration is attributed to a combination of global sea level rise and local subsidence, the gradual sinking of land. Historically, the Mississippi River deposited sediments that built and sustained the deltaic plains. However, human interventions, such as levee constructions and river channeling, have disrupted these natural processes, leading to significant land loss. The state has been losing about 25 square miles of land per year in recent decades. New Orleans, nestled between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain, is particularly vulnerable. Much of the city lies below sea level, protected by an intricate system of levees and pumps. Projections indicate that sea levels could rise by approximately 14.5 inches by 2040, exacerbating the risk of overtopping levees during storms. This scenario threatens not only residential areas, but also critical infrastructure, including ports and oil refineries. The encroaching waters jeopardize Louisiana's rich cultural heritage, from the historic French Quarter in New Orleans to the traditional fishing communities along the coast. The state's economy, heavily reliant on fisheries, tourism, and oil and gas industries, faces unprecedented challenges. Coastal wetlands, which support about 75% of the state's commercial fisheries, are disappearing, threatening livelihoods and biodiversity. In response, Louisiana has developed the Coastal Master Plan, a comprehensive strategy to restore wetlands, reinforce levees, and promote sustainable land use. Projects include sediment diversions to rebuild land and the construction of surge barriers to protect against storm surges. However, the scale of the challenge requires continuous innovation and substantial investment. The Isle de Jean Charles, once home to the Biloxi-Chitimacha Choctaw tribe, has become a symbol of climate displacement. Over the past decades, the island has lost 98% of its landmass to rising waters, forcing the community to relocate, a poignant reminder of the human cost of environmental degradation. Number 1. Florida. Florida, known for its sunny beaches and vibrant cities, stands as the U.S. state most vulnerable to the impacts of rising sea levels. With an extensive coastline and low-lying topography, the Sunshine State faces profound challenges that could reshape its future by 2040. Projections indicate that sea levels in Florida could rise between 10 to 17 inches by 2040, compared to 2000 levels. This escalation is attributed to global warming, leading to thermal expansion of oceans and melting ice caps. The state's flat terrain exacerbates the situation, making even modest sea level rise impactful. Major cities like Miami, Tampa, and Jacksonville are at significant risk. In Miami-Dade County, sunny day flooding, where streets flood during high tides without rainfall, has become more frequent. By 2040, it's projected that approximately 1 million acres of land could be lost to rising seas, potentially displacing over 205,000 residents. Florida's economy, heavily reliant on tourism, real estate, and agriculture, faces substantial threats. Properties in flood-prone areas are experiencing declining values, and insurance costs are soaring. A report by the Union of Concerned Scientists indicates that about 1 million homes, more than 10% of the state's residential properties, are at risk from climate change. The Everglades, a unique ecosystem and a vital source of drinking water for millions, is under threat. Saltwater intrusion contaminates freshwater supplies, and the loss of wetlands diminishes natural storm buffers. Efforts are underway to restore the Everglades, but challenges persist amid rising seas. Florida is investing in infrastructure improvements, such as elevating roads, constructing seawalls, and upgrading drainage systems. Miami Beach, for instance, has allocated $500 million for its sea level rise strategy, which includes elevated roadways, seawalls, and pumping systems. However, balancing development with sustainability remains a contentious issue, as new constructions continue in high-risk zones. The plight of the key deer, a subspecies native to the Florida Keys, illustrates the broader environmental challenges. Rising sea levels threaten their habitat, leading to concerns about their survival. Conservationists are grappling with strategies to protect these creatures, reflecting the complex interplay between human development and wildlife preservation. As we've journeyed through these 10 states, it's evident that rising sea levels present an existential challenge to coastal communities across the United States. The stories of Virginia's vanishing barrier islands, Mississippi's disappearing Gulf Coast, and Florida's sinking cities underscore the urgent need for comprehensive climate action. With millions of homes at risk and entire communities facing the threat of displacement, the time for reactive solutions has passed. Investing in resilient infrastructure, restoring natural barriers, and enacting sustainable policies are crucial steps toward safeguarding our shores. Governments, businesses, and individuals must work together to ensure that we are not just defending against the inevitable, but proactively shaping a future where our coastal cities and ecosystems can survive and thrive. Beyond property losses, the economic ripple effects of rising sea levels will be felt nationwide. Real estate markets will shift, insurance rates will skyrocket, and entire industries dependent on coastal tourism and marine ecosystems could suffer massive financial losses. More importantly, the social fabric of communities will be tested, as people are forced to relocate from the only homes they've ever known. While the threats are daunting, solutions are emerging. Coastal restoration projects, innovative flood defenses, sustainable urban planning, and renewable energy advancements offer a path forward. Cities like Miami, New Orleans, and Houston are already implementing large-scale adaptation strategies that could serve as blueprints for other vulnerable regions. Whether you're a homeowner, investor, or policymaker, the key is to stay informed, advocate for change, and prepare for the future. If you live in or plan to invest in coastal property, consider long-term sustainability, elevation risks, and local climate adaptation policies. The question is no longer if sea levels will rise, it's how we will respond. Will we take action now, or wait until our shorelines disappear? Join the conversation. What are your thoughts on the future of coastal real estate? Drop a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Globe Realty for more real estate insights and investment trends. Stay ahead of the curve, and we'll see you in the next video.